Hello and welcome to that Eurovision podcast. Quite possibly the weirdest and the newest podcast that has ever existed to do with Eurovision. So you're in for a ride in this first episode. So my name is Rory. I am 21 years old. I am originally from Ireland, but I'm currently living in Manchester. And I've been a Eurovision fan since 2007. That's when I started watching it properly, but it's been a big thing in my household for a long, long time before that. It actually was introduced to me by my mother, who, basically, to put it this way, I used to look at an atlas quite a lot when I was younger, and so my mum thought, if you like geography so much, you'll love this kind of thing, and little did she know. Um, so, yeah, basically, we've just decided to set up this podcast just to give us a little bit of a casual conversation style about everyone's favorite European music TV show. What we're going to do, everyone else who's on the podcast is also going to introduce themselves, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to discuss afterwards. So
I'll go first. My name's Jazzi. I'm 24. I was first introduced to Eurovision in 2006 through the national selection. I was 10. I just loved Teenage Life. I thought it was a really fun song. Obviously, now I kind of have different opinions now that I'm older. But like, I was really just like a casual Euro fan until about 2014. When I started to watch the semi-finals and watch the national finals, and I've made like so many friends like through this fandom. So like the moment that I pinpoint is like becoming like a major fan is when I watched Finland's 2014 performance. Ooh. Because like that got me into the fandom, and it's just opened so many doors for me that I don't think I would have if that song didn't exist. I know that sounds like crazy to say, but yeah, like my family isn't like major into Eurovision or anything like that. So all my discoveries have been from myself.
You're a real troubadour.
Yeah.
Rosie?
Hi, I'm Rosie. I'm 25. I'm currently living in Manchester. Currently living in Reading, but that's just for the current situation. My first Eurovision memory is in 2003, and it's watching Gemini perform, so I have no idea how I've stuck around this long.
Oh my God.
Something that find that catastrophe.
Because it is.
I genuinely have no idea how I ended up here. with that being pinpoint. But very happy I ended up here. I am relatively new to the actual sort of online fandom and that sort of thing. I started probably about 2017-ish, and then it's been great since then. Met loads of amazing people, and just loved being able to just discover stuff that I never would otherwise have.
I mean,
interesting.
It's really interesting, and it's nice that people can still join in the fandom from a little bit later and still be just as welcomed as if they had joined in 2006, 2007. I think that's really nice, and it's really inclusive.
I do think the Twitter fandom in like general is very welcoming to new people.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, yeah.
Definitely. I only started on Twitter about a year or so ago. Before that, I was mostly using Reddit.
Oh, wow.
But,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't even know Reddit fandom existed.
Yeah, it does. No, I haven't ventured into the Facebook fandom yet, so...
Oh, that's going to be a barrel of laughs. And, Tim?
All right, then. Hi, everyone. My name is Tim. I'm 24 years old, originally from the Philippines, but I've been living in the UK since 2006. Oh, God, that's so long. My first memory of Eurovision was back in 2007, and, of course, the UK was represented by Scooch. Oh, and boy, how I thought our entry was good.
Oh, dear
and
God.
just like you know, have a lot of air hostess and flight attendants just like, you know, sing a little dance along for 3 minutes. You know, we do well. Nope, we did not. Of course not. It's the UK. But yeah, that's the first Eurovision memory. You know, I always had it on the background for like once a year, just the grand final. Didn't even know that the semi-finals existed. But the time I joined the fandom was in 20. Well, I'd say after the 2012 contest when Loreen won, and that's where I started watching the national finals, and that's when I knew that the semi-finals existed. And Twitter came along in 2016 when I was just like, I really need to pique my interest further, and I just kind of like dug myself in since then, and it just never stopped. Like, my first contest was in Stockholm, and like I'm out and about everywhere. Also work for ESC Extra, shout out to them. And they're like, other than that, like but other than that, you know, it's been a good, you know, 8 years in the fandom, and I like the fact that how everyone is just so welcoming and, you know, and loving of somehow everyone knows everyone in UK events. I don't know if that's just a thing.
Yeah.
See, my first actual Eurovision event that wasn't Eurovision, because I've been to Dusseldorf and I've been to Malmö, but the first actual Eurovision like party event that I went to was actually Manchester Calling this year, and that was when I was actually able to meet Jazzi and Rosie. So it's been quite nice to kind of be more involved with the Twitter fandom, because I only really joined the Twitter fandom last year. I was involved with the Facebook fandom for a long time, but it was only recently that I've gotten into the Twitter fandom, and literally it's so nice just to have people that are just really welcoming about things. And
you'd be surprised when you go to event like, oh, you're so and so from Twitter. Oh, you're so and so from Twitter, and you're just like, wow, people actually know my name. And I'm like quite a bit shocked sometimes, and I'm flattered at the same time, and I'm just like, wow, you actually know who I am. I'm quite impressed.
Like at Eurovision events, I just think like your surname just becomes from Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yes, definitely. I mean, I don't know, one of our friends, Rebecca, I only knew her as Life as Becky. So then when I got introduced to her as Rebecca, I was like, oh my god.
Can't believe Manchester Calling was only a month ago and so much has happened since.
I know. It's gone so slow, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, slow and fast at the same time. That's what I'd suggest. Like a month ago, well, let's say a month and a bit ago, I was in Malmö, and then I've been hearing it might be cancelled due to this thing, and then fast forward 3 weeks later, oh, it's cancelled. Like a few weeks ago, I was just laughing it off like, okay, it's not gonna get cancelled. I mean, come on, like, you know, there's too much logistics for this to be cancelled. And then suddenly Yon Ola appears on my feed like it's cancelled. It's like
I was like, that's like 64 years. Like they've gone like through so many world events and it's never been cancelled before. And then I was just like gobsmacked. But obviously,
like who would win a 64-year-old contest or one microscopic boy?
Well, who would have...
Wow.
Oh dear. So as you could tell, what we're going to be talking about is the fact that Eurovision 2020 has been cancelled, and we're going to have 2021 Eurovision now next year, hopefully in Rotterdam. There's no official confirmation of that yet, but as of recording, there is about 12 or so countries who have confirmed their artists that have been taking part in the 2020 contest that are going to be taking part next year. So what I want to know is where were you guys when you heard the news, and like what was like your first reaction?
I was just at home and I was like just waiting for it, like for an announcement, and I just never thought that cancellation was going to happen. I just thought, oh, it'll be, if anything, it'll be postponed till like later in the year. Like, they won't cancel it. They won't throw away like 41 songs and all the effort that all the countries and delegations had put in. But they did. But obviously, I think it was necessary to cancel it because obviously we don't know where this pandemic is going to be come May. I don't think anything's going to be solved by the time Eurovision would have ended up being. But I have some opinions on what countries have done moving forward and the obvious decision to not allow the 2020 songs to compete in the 2021 contest. Like, there have been mistakes made along the way, but the cancellation itself, I'm like, yeah, this kind of needed to happen with what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah, I feel like it was probably the best and probably the most ethical decision to make because obviously the amount of money that broadcasters in countries have been spending in order to organise this whole thing, for them to actually come and then risk their lives in order to perform just for maybe 2 nights maximum, it's probably not really worth it in the long run. So I understand why they did it. Of course, when it happened, I was just in such shock. I was actually in Preston for a university interview, and then as soon as I came out of the interview, I got the notifications on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook saying that Eurovision had been cancelled, and I literally just had to stop myself. Really, I literally was just like gobsmacked. It was crazy. I mean, I understand why they did it. It did sadden me for quite a while. I literally was just binge listening to Montaigne, Don't Break Me on the train back from Preston later on that day, because I thought no other song could potentially kind of lift up to the same level of emotional and sadness that I had been feeling. But yeah, I totally understand why they've done it. I do think some of their decisions after that regarding the 2021 contest and the songs that get to compete, some mistakes have been made, but I will get more into that a little bit later on in when we talk about it.
Okay, where was I? Yeah, I was at work. Basically what it is that, earlier that morning anyways, there were, like, news from, like, tabloids that's just saying, oh, it's cancelled, like, an announcement is due to be made later on the day. And I was just, like, on Twitter, just like, look, can you not spread panic at the minute? Like, don't, don't beat the organizers into, if it is cancelled, let them say it. Don't beat them to it because of the fact that, you know, they're the ones that, like, spent all this money to just organize it. So, you know, give them the decency and the respect to just announce it themselves instead of, like, you know, saying it's cancelled, like the organizer are going to say something later. It's like, well, then let them say it. Don't spread fear. And, you know, when the inevitable happened, I was actually on my lunch break, and I was about to go back to work, and I was just like, Eurovision's been cancelled. I was like, okay, you know, when you got that, like, fight or flight mode, like, the first thing I did was, okay, I'm not going to think about it. I have to go back to work. So, I did my work for 3 hours, and as soon as I finished, I was like, okay, gotta cancel my holiday, cancel my annual leave. And then when I got home, I was like, nope, I'm just gonna sit in my room and, you know, just sleep off. But as Rory said, I can see why they did it. Like, we don't know when this will end. Like, I even heard news that they might even just postpone it even for the summer. But then the problem you've got with that is that the organizing, the problem you got with that is that the winning country would have less time to organize it. So I understand it, but at the same time, I'm just really gutted because, like, you got 41 songs that are just, like, sitting there, like, not doing anything. And, you know, we'll get the album on the 8th of May, but still, it's kind of like, it's just wasted. But it is what it is.
Like, I understand, like, they couldn't really postpone because a lot of the favourites to win were countries that either haven't won for a very long time or have just never won before, period, like Bulgaria and Lithuania. And then obviously Switzerland, who haven't won for, like, I'm not even sure how many years, but I know it's a long time. So would these countries have been prepared to host had they had a shorter amount of time? I just don't know.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of I feel like obviously with countries such as Iceland and Lithuania, like they'd never had this amount of hype before. So obviously, like there's it's creating that sort of expectation that oh maybe just maybe something might happen because I know that Lithuania was actually looking into the possibility of Kaunas hosting the 2021 contest if they had won. Obviously that's not really going to happen anymore, but it's when that amount of hype gets built up for your song, you can't really get help getting swept into the hype and into the optimism and the hope, really. So the fact that it kind of the cancellation kind of just brought everything to a standstill, I think, like it was obviously a big shock to us fans, but I'm sure it's probably even more of a shock to the broadcasters, the heads of delegation, everyone involved with that, because it's obviously not an easy decision to make and it has a lot of repercussions.
Like the feeling that I got on like social media, not on social media from the artist, was that the artist found out it was cancelled when we did, and I just think that's just insane. Like
the day before, G-John was saying that that it was still going ahead, so he can't have had much more notice than we did.
Yeah, it's very sad, obviously, and for some artists, this probably will be the last time we probably see them. But the thing is, we just have to kind of carry on, and we just have to be prepared for the 2021 contest now, and the 2021 contest will definitely be a hell of a show, I think, in respect to everything that's been brought on by this current pandemic, and it'll be just more of a celebration, more so, and it'll have more significance than possibly ever before.
I'm absolutely living at the moment for announcements of returning artists.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yes.
So
when Montaigne announced last night, I was just delighted.
Yes, I was gonna say.
And she would like. I really loved her song anyway, but it's just so lovely seeing people returning and feeling so excited about it, and also broadcasters standing by their artists.
Ooh, shade.
Controversial.
Well, I was going to ask, as of recording right now, we have a certain number of these returning artists coming back. So we have, just to get a list up, so we have Australia, Austria, Azerbaijan, Belgium, Bulgaria, Georgia, Greece, Israel, the Netherlands, Romania, Spain, Switzerland, and Ukraine. All of those countries are sending their 2020 representatives. Who are you most excited to see back?
I think
honestly all of them.
Yeah, I'm just happy that they've all got their shot to come back. But I think the person that I'm most excited for is probably Ukraine, just simply because that song was my favourite song from the their song was my favourite out of the returning for the 2020 artists.
I mean, it was Go Away is actually like a really like I've actually checked out some of their other work, and practically Solove is pretty much in their style anyway. So it's not like they had written a song specifically for Eurovision anyway. It would just felt like something that they were putting at themselves as part of their normal discography, and so they just decided, oh yeah, we'll just chuck this into Eurovision, and here we are.
Yeah.
How about you, Rosie? Like, who are you mostly looking forward to, if any? If you don't want to discriminate, that's all right.
I think a lot of favourites this year have announced that they're returning. Go A again was a big one. Switzerland. Really excited to hear what Montaigne does. I'm really excited to hear what Hooverphonic does. I'm hyped, to be quite honest, and I think the sort of the joy and the passion that so many of these artists have for wanting to return is wonderful. And hopefully with a little bit longer to work on what they do, the better that they can do the best work for themselves, which is really exciting.
I think that's definitely a thing. I think because say country like these artists have been preparing for this whole contest this whole time and then not being able to show their work. I feel like having them to come back again would be practically giving them a second chance to show off their artistry, and I think that's something to be definitely admired.
Definitely agree with the fact that everyone deserves their shot. But there's two that I'm looking forward to. First one is Victoria, because she is my winner, and I know how it was a bit of a trek for Bulgaria to get back this year, and the fact that sponsorship, and that I like the fact that they confirmed straight away that we're coming back and we're sending Victoria, yay. But I'm kind of curious to see where she'll go from here, because obviously she was at the top of the betting odds before the cancellation. So will she be at the top spot again next year? We won't know. The other one would be Austria. I really like Vincent's style, and I really like the track. And for the Filipino Eurovision fans who have been waiting so long for someone, it's kind of nice to have some representation on there. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, it's really nice though to see so many of these countries actually coming back and standing by their artists, like how Rosie had said. My personal favourites at the moment were Montaigne and Little Big from Russia. Now, Little Big have not been confirmed yet, but fingers crossed they will. But I'm so glad that Montaigne has actually been able to come back, and hopefully we'll get another absolute banger like how Don't Break Me was. But the thing is, we won't really know what happens until after September. Who knows? With the amount of time that they have to prepare their songs, we might even have the first song coming out in September time. This is all such uncharted territory. This could actually be a real possibility.
Remember when Hooverphonic were announced on the 1st of September this year, and everyone got super hyped.
I think it's just because when you kick the Eurovision selection process off with such a big name, it sets the precedent for so many other people to come around. So, for example, like Blas Canto from Spain, he was a big part of, is it Aurin? He was like a fan favourite in the 2011 selection. And then as well as that, you also had James Newman, who obviously isn't a big name, but he's linked to a big name. And then you also have Roxanne as well, who's big in Romania as well. So it's really good to see that even despite all of their fame, and they can think, oh, we don't necessarily have to go back if we don't want to, they're actually taking the time to say, yes, we actually do want to commit ourselves to this again. And I think that's really respectable. Okay, right. Here's another question for you. Now that the contest has been cancelled, which countries do you think are a little bit thankful for that? Given the fact that maybe they might not have had a lot of hype, or maybe the fact that the community kind of responded poorly to the song. Who do you think will be happy that they get another chance to send something completely different?
Oh, I think I can easily find this one. I'd say Slovenia.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, interesting choice.
Yeah. Because I didn't fell for it. I think there was a lot of hype with Lena, who participated in Junior Eurovision for Slovenia in 2015. And I think when she didn't win, it just kind of went downhill for Slovenia, really. And even though they've had that pre-selection to find out two artists for their selection, like to spread the hype over, it kind of, I think, like when Tina didn't win, it kind of like went downhill, and everyone's just like, I don't know what it is, but like I don't see that much like response towards Voda, and I don't know why, but from what I can see, yeah, definitely Slovenia. I think like, you need some sort of fresh air.
I think I'm going to say Finland.
Ooh.
Like,
oh,
yeah.
I think after Chialina didn't win, I think the people of Finland were just really shocked. Like, obviously, it was pretty much the juries that sent Axel to Eurovision, and obviously we've seen that Finland's response is basically they will hold UMK next year, and it'll basically be exactly the same as it was this year, meaning that Axel would have to reapply if he wanted to go to Eurovision again in 2021. So I'm getting like the hints that they're quite thankful they don't have to send this song. I actually don't think the song would have done as badly as a lot of people think it would have done. I think the juries would have appreciated Axel's vocals, and it was nicely staged in the national final. However, I think there was just so much bitterness at the time around Chialina not pretty thankful that they get a second shot next year.
Yeah, I'd probably say that as well. Although my personal pick would have been France, because I think I think everyone in France should be happy that that The Best in Me hasn't actually gone to Eurovision, because when that song came out, I just remember the amount of disappointment and almost kind of abhorrence it got, because it was practically a Eurovision song by numbers. And it's no credit to Tom, because Tom was a lovely, lovely guy, and he is actually hilarious. I don't know if any of you follow him on Instagram, but he actually is quite a personality. But that song was just not it. So maybe they could send him again next year, but with something completely different, maybe something a little bit more contemporary, maybe it's something a little bit, maybe even completely out there that wouldn't be completely different to The Best in Me. Now, obviously, he did say he was going to send a more acoustic version that was more in French than it was in English, so that could have had some redeeming qualities, but overall, I think that song was doomed from the start.
Meanwhile, everyone in the UK is disappointed that they're not sending that, because it might have actually stopped us coming last for once. But about sisters last year, so what do I know?
But what about you, Rosie? Who do you think has probably a bit thankful?
I think Belgium as well. I get the feeling from what I've read from what Hooverphonic have said is that what they sent, while it was good, it wasn't necessarily authentic to their style and their sound. And I think the impression that I've gotten from what they've said since the cancellation and since they've confirmed that they're going to be coming back is that they want to do something that is much more sort of authentic to what their style is and what their band is like. So while I actually really liked Release Me, and I've not heard anyone hate it. I've heard a lot of people sort of like, it's not really what I expected, it's a bit dull, that sort of thing. I really liked it, but I'm quite excited to see what they come up with that fits more with how they view themselves as artists.
Yeah, I could probably see that. When Hooverphonic first came out, I don't know if it's the same with any of you guys, but I had a quick listen to a couple of their songs, and I have to say it wasn't the sort of style of music that I would personally listen to, but I could see there was potential there. So when Release Me came out, I thought it was just a bit generic, maybe. And I mean that in a good way.
We're kind of into the Belgian bomb theme thing.
Kinda,
like-
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Like
I-
whatever Belgium sends, it's just like every other year. It's like it's just a broadcaster thing where it's just like why does it like relate to Bond? It's like it's just kind of like a theme they're trying to just keep on going until they just like beat City Lights once again. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
like there was two songs that were kind of like really bomb themey this year. There was Belgium and Holland, and I really liked both. And like the response from the rest of the was just like, these songs are okay, they're good quality, but they don't interest me. And I think that's fair enough. If the bomb theme thing is not to your taste, then
Yeah, I think with the Bond theme, like sometimes they have to get it right, but the problem is with that sort of Bond state, with that sort of Bond style, the staging of the song would be very difficult. So, and I think the main case in point that we have with that is Scenic.
Yeah.
Because like that song in the studio version was fantastic. That version was unbelievable. But then as soon as we got to Lisbon, the dress, her style on stage, and you could just tell that she was unbelievably nervous. And I think that like with that sort of song you need the kind of suave sophistication, and I just don't think we got that. So it's a very fine line that you have to tread when you're staging those sorts of songs.
Matter of Time is up there on my list of songs absolutely killed in the live.
Thing is though, it was a staging. She sounded fine because I was in the arena that day. Well, for that show. And probably, I don't know if it's a known fact, but the person that did the staging, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, I think that the person that did the A Matter of Time staging also did the staging for, was it Arcade? I'm not sure. Like, I think he was involved with it somehow. But like, you know, whoever staged it, it's kind of like a hit and miss.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be a Sacha Jean-Baptiste anytime soon. Well, at least some of these countries will be very happy to get back to normal, and they can maybe send something that might please the fandom just that little bit more. What I want to ask you, though, is what do you think about some of the countries that haven't given their artists like the chance to come back? So, for example, Lithuania, Finland. Like, what do you think about that? Do you think that they should have stayed by their artist, or do you think that actually maybe it was a good idea?
I think they should have at least, if they wanted to hold a national final, there was ways they could have done it and still kept the artist. If the artist beat, like we've seen Finland have done it before with Sara and with Darude. So I'm a bit sad that they didn't do it for Axel. Like, have the artist in the national final and have like a selection of, let the public and the jury pick from the song. So in a way you can still stand by your artist. But obviously that's not what countries have done, and I just find it not a little bit distasteful. Because those artists have obviously worked really hard, and it's almost as if all their hard work for like for like these countries to just ditch their art.
Do you want to go?
Yeah,
Tim?
for me, I think for me, it's like, it's very distasteful. It's like maybe the EBU could have said that, you know, you can participate in 2021, but you have to have the artists that you've selected for 2020. Like, that could have been like the little loophole that could have saved everyone, but apparently not. But the thing is, I think it's kind of worst hit in Scandinavia than everyone else at the minute, because it's kind of like we've seen the likes of like Australia, like and who else could be Israel? Ian Lennon was selected for Rising Star, and the fact that they said like, "We'll give you a shot," and same with Montaigne, and positively received by everyone. So like, I don't get why. I mean, like, let's say Sweden, like Melodifestivalen has been this like scene that can't be stopped.
Yeah.
So I could see why they'd say like, we can't stop it for the sake of three ladies to go to Eurovision 21 because it's our tradition. But yeah, I think it's kind of like a hit and miss. Some distaste a lot on some of the broadcasters that send the 2020 acts, personally.
I feel like there's a compromise that you can do if you want to have a national final with multiple artists. At least give the artist that won this year a chance to go straight to the final if they want to resubmit another song to it. I know that they've offered, Norway have offered that with Ulrika, and Ulrika said no, and that's completely fine if she doesn't want to take that opportunity. But at the same time, I know Lithuania were talking about doing it with the Roop and things like that. At least giving them the opportunity to come back and produce new music, and also so that they don't have to produce a load of different songs for one national final as well. Mm-hmm. So that they can spend their time concentrating on making one really good track, and if they want to then resubmit that, then that's something that they can do. I would prefer it if they kept their artists and just said, hey, we'll do an internal selection and we'll find out something else to do for the national final instead for a year. But if they can't do that and they really have to hold something, then I feel like that would be a good compromise.
Yeah, I think obviously, like I'd said, this is just completely unprecedented, and no one really has any idea what's going on. So I think, like, we're all pretty much taking a stab into the dark here, but I do think it is a bit unfair, I think, to basically say to some artists, okay, sorry about all of this, but we have our things in place, and so we can't really let this happen again. So actually, I think one country that has kind of already prepared for this is Russia, because if you think about it, Yulia Samoylova was disqualified, and so they offered her the chance to come back in 2018. Now, obviously, there was a lot of controversy around her selection, and then, like, with the Ukrainian government. So, obviously, there was a lot of controversy about the whole thing. But they've kind of had a head start on this because they kind of know how to handle themselves in this sort of situation. I mean, personally, I would have said keep the artists from 2020. But obviously, with the big institutional might of, say, like Melodifestivalen and Melodi Grand Prix, or even Sanremo as well. Sanremo, Diodata will probably not come back either. But it would still have been nice to give them first refusal anyway. Mm-hmm. But obviously, like Rosie said, like, there could have been a compromise, but each broadcaster takes things differently in their own way, so we can't really stop anything about that, but we can show our disapproval if we don't like what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I'd say one last sort of question, so before we start to wrap things up, what do you think 2021 has to hold for the contest? Do you think we're going to have more controversies like how Romania had in 2019? Or are we going to have just a relatively simple year in the national final selection process?
I'd be really surprised if there wasn't any controversy, because I think if there is, I think it would just build up to 2021, and I swear that something controversial would just pop up at the end when we're like nearing the contest. But I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get controversies like, broadcasters not selecting their 2020 artists for 2021. So I think we've got 12, and there's like what, up to a maximum 45 countries that can participate. So I'd be really surprised if none of those that come in are like non-controversial or like controversial in some way, at least, I'd say.
I initially, for myself, I was a little bit worried, like when it was trying to completely binned off the country, the contest in 2021. Now, it doesn't seem to be the case at the moment, but I do wonder if as we get nearer to, say, the deadline, not to use 2020, 2021, and it's definitely something that I personally did agree with, that because by the point of the 2020 test, songs would be 15, 16 months old, and it would have been, I don't know, unfair to countries that had choose a new song.
Okay. Interesting, yeah.
But obviously, I don't think it's going to be the case on a massive scale like I was like initially worried about things. But I do think if a country's going to win, probably nearer the deadline date. But the countries that I was actually worried about, such as Bulgaria and Romania, seem to be sending their 20 out, and it seems to all be okay.
Well, that's good. I mean, at least it's like kind of somewhat reducing the anxiety anyway.
Yeah.
I feel like I have one wish for next year, and my wish is that Montenegro come back and they roll up in their shiny new cars that they're broadcasting for. And they're just like, stop, motherfuckers. That's my one wish for next year.
Come back.
Please, Montenegro, we miss you.
Montenegro, just come back, win the lot, and it's as if they never withdrew in the first place.
If they could come back with something somewhat similar to Euro Nero, I'd be totally on board with that. No? Okay, no. Myself personally, I'd love to see Montenegro come back. I'd also really love to see Andorra come back. Now, obviously, Andorra's been absent since 2009, but given the fact that there's been a lot of kind of talking between the national broadcaster and the government about funding it, I mean, who doesn't love Andorra? You know, it's been a hot minute since we've seen them. I think it's time that the Eurovision fandom actually appreciates the little tiny microstate.
Absolutely.
I mean, come on. Who doesn't love Oh Casanova? Oh, absolute bop. I mean, as well, I do think it could potentially be another controversial year, just because some countries will not have sent their song from, or not their song, their singer from the 2020 contest, so there could be a little bit of resentment there. Of course, for all we know, Melody Festival will probably become another controversial one where there's 5 different favourites, and then one who's a complete outsider comes out and wins it, and then everyone's upset. But I mean, this is just the beauty of Eurovision, to be honest. I mean, everything is going to be splitting opinions, and we just have to be prepared for that and support whoever goes, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, is there any sort of closing thoughts you guys want to have just before we say goodbye?
I'm just saying, I'm just really looking forward to 2021. Like, I'm already bored.
Oh, same.
Yeah.
That's all there is. Like, literally, when this is over, I'm gonna hit the first Eurovision party wherever that.
Yeah, like, I can't wait to just hit my, like, first party, like, as soon as this is over. Like, the first one that's announced, like, wherever it is, it may even be somewhere else in Europe. I'm just going.
If it's in Manchester, we will all get together and we'll all have a fantastic time. I can say that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, so this is the end of the first edition of That Eurovision podcast. Obviously, I'd like to thank everyone for coming along and joining in on this magical ride talking about the 2020 contest. In the next few editions, we'll probably be talking a lot more about specific countries and their approach to the contest and what we think could work for them, what couldn't work for them. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, feel free to follow us on all of our social media. So we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Also follow us on our WordPress as well, so then you get notified whenever a new episode comes out. And yeah, we'll be seeing you in the next episode. So everyone say farewell.
Bye.
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 Bye.